guys, welcome back to another episode of the Sauce Boss podcast. I am so excited for this episode. You guys, I have Jordan McGee here, and he's one of my friends who literally crushes it on social and always has. So thank you for being here, Jordan.
I'm stoked to be here.
This is going to be so cool. So you have so much insight. I feel like we could be on here for hours. So
We probably should be.
I know. Like, I don't want to put a time limit on it either because it's like, I just want it to flow. Like, and
100%.
you walked in and I'm like, I literally had so many questions, and you like, I just feel like you're like a wealth of knowledge, and I'm so excited to jump into this. So thanks again.
Amazing. Let's cruise.
Yeah. So you got started in social media way before most people did. Like, I think you were what, 10?
More or less. Yeah. I mean, media, like just internet stuff, and then social media kind of just like rolled. You know, I was just like in Craigslist or in whatever, eBay, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, YouTube it became a platform that you could actually make money on.
Yeah.
So it intrigued me. It like got me interested.
I love that. I think it's so cool. Well, and so you got into it really early, but like how, like what got you interested in, like how did you get to where you're at now?
Yeah, so I guess like really I could break it down in multiple different ways, but as far as social media goes specifically, I did start my sophomore year of high school in a broadcast journalism class, and one of the topics was like make a viral video, and that just like hit me really hard where it became not just like a class project but like a life mission, and I was like, I'm going to do this no matter what. So like I gotta do some studies. I gotta figure out what this landscape on YouTube looks like. People are making money on there, so like what's the deal? And if I get something to pop off, like can I get some type of, you know, reciprocity for achieving my goal, you know? And so yeah, it kind of it came together really quickly. I mean, I definitely put in a lot of time just studying the algorithms and studying like what's working, what are search results, what are how are the suggested videos working, and just like really breaking down the fundamentals of what the platform was, and then just kind of reverse engineering that and just paying attention to like, okay, what are trends, what trends are popping, like how can I ride waves with trends, you know, things like that.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And you're 25, so this was when you were in high school. It's probably like 2011, 10.
Yeah 2010 I think was like my sophomore year. Yeah.
Okay, so that was like, I feel like that's when like social media started rolling. Like there was like the early adopters, which you were totally a part of, and then I feel like like high school age for us was when people were like, oh, Facebook, oh, this is like a thing. So I love that. So you also created an online platform. I mean, you have a business that has, it's like more of an umbrella, which I'd love for you to explain like Void and what you do, and then I'd love to jump into this online platform you've created called Office Party.
Yeah, 100%. So essentially, I was always looking for someone that could just help me take my dreams as big as they could possibly go. And over the course of the time that I was building, I was always just meeting different people, connecting with other people that are doing similar things in the space, and that's kind of where I got into the whole like YouTube, that took me into film, that took me into Instagram, that took me into traveling, and then long story short, that kind of got wrapped up in the whole like influencer game. And so I realized like, oh, my skill set is super, you know, broad in the sense that I can kind of help anyone do whatever they need. And so I became very, you know, jack of all trades. And the thing that interests me the most was that I could help people achieve their dreams, right? And so I kept finding all these people that were like, oh, well, here's what I want to do. And I'm like, well, we can do that in 2 seconds. Like, let's get started. Like, let's write this down. Let's put it in action. Let's see if we can accomplish it in like 10 days or whatever, you know? And so, you know, different stories with that. And so I started helping my sister build her YouTube channel, and then at the same time I met my partner Daniel, and him and I started Void Influencers, and that's where we kind of started managing different people and helping them, you know, with the business back end of what they were doing.
Yeah.
And so over time we bombed out to New York. We wanted to see more.
So
Daniel's
cool.
like, I'll help you with your dreams, you help me with mine. And I'm like, okay, well, let's help each other, but then let's also help all these other people with their dreams. And then obviously social media is just like the most scalable version of like dreaming.
Totally.
You know?
That's why I love it. It's so, like, there's so much opportunity.
Exactly. And so all it takes is basically creating an idea and putting it on the internet and then just seeing what happens and having no expectations.
Yeah.
And trusting that over time, you know, it has the possibility to be seen by as many people as can possibly see it, and it never expires. Like, it's always on the internet. So my mind's going in like 10 different ways right now, but I think at the end of the day, what Daniel and I kept seeing over and over and over was that people needed help really, you know, making their dreams tangible.
Yeah.
And so we did it very manually at first. It was very much like, okay, Excel sheets and, you know, written documents and all of these like very manual processes. And over time we were like, okay, how do we automate our jobs? So let's build tech. And so it was inevitable. Daniel had already had experience with building apps. And so we were just constantly ideating on how do we create more and more automation with all of these things that we're doing? How do we make a platform that can help all these people at the same time? Because at the end of the day, we just don't have enough time to help everyone that we want to help.
Yeah.
So
I love it. And I love that your focus is, and we kind of talked about this before we even got started, but your focus is on helping others achieve their dreams, which is kind of funny because I want to talk about the spiritual side of this too, but so I just got back just barely I booked myself a hotel and I went and like brain dumped for sauce, and I finally figured out like truly the core of why I do sauce and why I like want this to grow, and it's because I want to help other people like achieve their dreams. That's truly like the quote I wrote in my journal. So when you said that, I was like, this is crazy. Like, I literally wrote that down today.
That's amazing. It's always aligned. Everything always aligns.
It always aligns. It's so cool. But I love that because I feel like that is your gift. Like, ever since I met you, we met when you were in the film, like, world with Instagram. Like, you're traveling like crazy. And, like, just seeing you grow, like, just from then, that was probably, 2017 maybe?
Yeah,
like
when we were cruising to Thailand.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Is that when we met?
More or less. It was right around that same time. I think that was the main reason we met, though.
That's probably, yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
That was a fun trip. Yeah, we went to Thailand together. But it's so cool, too, to, like, see when the time we met to where you're at now, like, you exponentially have grown. Like, not just, like, oh, you're starting new projects. Like, it's insane what you've been able to accomplish. And so, I'd love to like talk about that. Like what is your mindset to get you to this exponential growth? And for someone who's just getting into, you know, figuring out what they want to do, like how have you fostered this awesome growth?
I think from day one, I always envisioned that I would never do this by myself. And so I was always looking for who's going to help me do this. And I was always down to play for the long game or whatever you want to call it. I just always knew that, to me, I mean, if you look at like the biggest companies out there, like Amazon or whatever, like Jeff Bezos owns 16% of Amazon or whatever it comes down to. And like, I think people get in this weird mindset where they're like, I need to own my business. I need to be a majority stakeholder. And it kind of like creates this process of like, no, just get started by yourself. And I'm kind of the opposite. I'm like, no, I'm like trying to be lazy all the time.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thing lately. I'm just like, now I'm lazy. So like, what's the most efficient way to do this? The most efficient way to do it is to find an accountability partner, you know, someone who's willing to tell you straight up when you're not working hard enough, or you're willing to tell them, or like whatever. And so I found this process to work really, really well with every single person that I work with. And so now as I created an initial partnership, now we're kind of in a trio. So there's 3 of us that are in on this umbrella concept. And then it's cool how we all kind of like run the ship individually, but still together. And so it really breaks down into a tangible form of just understanding what reciprocity is, where it's very much that, utopian type mindset, but like not really. And that word's really cliche, but that's why I like the word reciprocity better. Because it just means like do your best and find people that you trust, and if you're in it for the long game, then they're going to trust you too. And then there's no weird feelings ever. It's just forward momentum. So I don't know. A lot of that's kind of more like theory or conceptual, but I don't know if that kind of makes.
Yeah, no, totally. And I love that. It's like a tribal mindset, like you're saying. And that's something that I'm starting to learn now, because I feel like being totally candid, I've had partners in the past. I talk about this often, and it didn't work. And I think it's, I mean, maybe we one or the other, it's not in it for the long haul, you know. And maybe and also like frequencies are different. Like no one's better or worse than the other. Like, so I think finding people that are on your frequency is super important. And I love that, and that makes me really excited, because I'm now in the process of expanding my team, and I've noticed that, like, when you have that group that's aligned with the same mission, the growth it compounds. It's like a snowball effect. It's like a snowball going down a freaking huge hill. Like, you can't even stop it. It's like, it's really cool.
And I think one thing to look out for when searching for partners is the fact that, like, it's one thing to have the vision, and it's one thing to be get along very well together, but you almost need, if you have someone that you kind of have a spark with, I mean, it very much is like dating someone, because in a lot of cases, I mean, I'm more married to my two partners than I am like my girlfriend, right? Because like me and my girlfriend don't have anything on paper.
Yeah.
But me and my business partners, like, we are legally bound together on multiple paperwork, you know, pieces of paper at the bank, everywhere. But the thing that I think is the core of our relationship is that there's this, like, we had to go through something kind of crazy. Like, it was like outside of the vision, outside of the friendship, outside of all that. And so there's different things that you could do, but I think it's just like going to do something crazy. Like, just go on a trip together. Like, oh, you want to start a business? Go spend a week with them in the woods with no service, and just see where, like hit your brain, you know, habits, like, change them and get something that's just very solid, or very, like, just like changes your whole life, so that every moment from, you know, moving on with that person is attached to something that's not just the business.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's kind of like a world I play in. I do think you should do business with your friends.
Yeah.
Like,
I love that.
You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, no, I love that. Like, that's such good advice, because I think maybe oftentimes, since I'm jaded on my podcast, I'm like, don't do it.
Yeah.
But I love that mindset, because it's not impossible, and you're doing it right now. And it's funny you say that too, because I always thought, I'm like, before I marry someone, we have to go like backpack Europe or something, because like true colors come out.
Something crazy.
Yeah.
Like, literally just grab the person and get to know them at their root level. I mean, when you study how a lot of business is done over in more of the Eastern type countries, they spend a lot of time as friends before you even talk about business. So they'll come in, and before they have their meeting, they might wait a day, 2 days, 3 days, and do like sauna sessions and like all these events before they ever talk about the deals, you know?
That's genius.
So it's pretty, I mean, me and Daniel have had fun with it. In LA, there's a place called We Spa. And so you just like cruise down there, and they like split into male and female saunas. There's like there's saunas for everyone, and then there's saunas for like just
each
guys
gender,
and girls. Yeah. And so we've like had business meetings in there where you're just like literally walking around butt naked, and then you like sit on a little stool, and you like look in the mirror, like all the dudes in the line, and you're just like shaving your whole body, and like just like a little like but those things are so primal, and maybe that's what we circle back to, is that primal mindset is so important. And the reason why I think it's so important is because our human minds and bodies weren't meant to be in a world that is today, theoretically.
Yeah.
Right? We weren't meant to just be seen by millions of people. Like, on that more energetic plane, when you really think about, like, even for someone who's maybe not super mega popular, like, let's say you get like a couple hundred likes on an Instagram post. I mean, it's a pretty weird energetic thing to just be like seen by 300 people that you're not with. I mean, in olden days, that would be like a vision. That would be like some thing came to you and showed you an image of where someone else is at this moment. And like, I don't know. It just gets weird when you flip back into that primal mindset of what those people would see today. Like, what does today look like to someone who lived 4,000 years ago?
Yeah. It really isn't natural. Like, that's such a good point. And I love, like, how you've connected that to, like, you know, going back to, like, our primal instincts. Like, and, you know, everyone will kind of figure out their own flow with that. But at the end of the day, when things get hard, you go off of, like, instincts. Like, you're in survival mode. And so it's really important to see, too, what people do in more of a primal state.
Well, in that primal state, the internet doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Like, when you're in meditation, or if you can hit that bliss moment of, like, literally doing nothing and being okay with yourself. By the way, I've been practicing this meditation. I still haven't been able to lock it in.
I was just going to ask you, like, what are you doing? I want to know.
I came up with this one where I was like, I was really frustrated one day just because of a series of events. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to sit right here. And I'm not going to move until I decide that this is the best moment that's ever happened in my life.
I love that.
And so I sat there for like 45 minutes, just like pushing through it. And I'm like, all right, fine. Okay, yeah, this moment's amazing. Thank you. Like, I'm here. I'm alive. Like, there's 5,000 things to be stoked about. Like, why am I so frustrated about this thing? And to me, it very much is similar to the internet. Like, the internet theoretically is not real. Like, it's information traveling through space that's not hardly even tangible unless you have a receiver for it. So when you're tuning in to the internet, when you get on Instagram, you are literally dialing yourself to be able to receive that information. And so in the same way that, like, when you're practicing meditation, you realize that you're in control of what is flowing through your mind. And so all the time when you don't know you're in control, fears and anxieties can just attack you and you're not fully aware of it, which is, like, in my opinion, that's why just doing a 10-minute practice a day is very valuable, because you train your mind to, like, know what to tune into the same way that you know how to dial a radio, or, like, you know how to get on your phone and receive information. Like, you're in control. You know?
Yeah. No, I love that so much. And I agree. I think meditation, I'm working to be better at this and, like, finding my own flow. But when I'm in a groove of, like, being on top of my meditation, there's a book. So it's called Untamed. I talked about it on my podcast before. It's by Glennon Doyle. Have you heard about it? It's, like, really geared towards women. That's probably why. But she talks about her meditation practice, and she calls it, like, you get to a state which is called, like, the knowing, and it's almost like you're completely, like, inside of yourself, like, you're at your root and you just know what to do, like, you know, like, the actions to take. And I feel like whenever there's a big decision that needs to come up, like, I want to hit that knowing. I need to go into that meditation, and because, like, you have, as cheesy as it sounds, you have the answers within you, but we're so distracted by everything around us, and, like you said, like, the internet is it's really unnatural for us. And so when you can
we're
step
just
away,
now getting used to it. Like, we're not, like, it's just now starting. Like, we just turned it on. Like, it's just now, like, premiering more or less, you know? Especially since I forget what the number was. It's like 49% of the people still do not have access to the web.
Oh, yeah. You put that in your article, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So, and then, I mean, when you think about it in that context, it's like, okay, we're trapped in this little American bubble for anyone in this country, or maybe you're an Australian bubble or a European bubble or whatever, but in places that are more predominantly based on the internet. And you think that, like, oh, all my friends are on Instagram and whatever, but, like, what does the next 10, 20 years look like whenever we're connecting deeper and solving more, like, global problems using connection and using the web, where we're possibly teaching, sustainability or whatever types of formats we want, so that we can help other countries or help other people, and just being able to share knowledge. I mean, and so if we go big with it, the internet to me really is just the digital twin. I speak about this digital twin a lot because I think that pretty much anything digital is a twin of something analog, right? So when you think about email, it's electronic mail, right?
Yeah.
Or like pretty much any concept like that it's that digital twin of whatever is happening in real life. So the digital twin of the internet to me is just it's the collective conscious. Like it's what everyone in the world is thinking and moving and connect. Like it's just happening. It's just going. And when you study one of my favorite books I'm reading right now is called Rational Optimist by Matt Ridley. And it's really cool because he's very much like, like there's so much to be optimistic about in the world right now. Like when you really do look at the data on the internet, it's more used for good than bad. More people are using it to help them than to hurt people. And like usually it starts with some type of war. It starts with like porn, or like it starts with these things that are like very quickly accessed and pushed, but then it circles back and it's good. Like, we start with like Silk Road, and now we're into a beautiful space of like what cryptocurrencies are working on and like how they're working for people. Or it starts with the black market, and then it moves into like this whole entire Shopify scene. You know what I mean? Like same. Yeah. It's just like, which side are you on and what are you doing? But it just takes that initial, I don't know, push of like maybe something that's not quite as good, and then people get all weird about it and they're like, oh, the internet's scary and it's a bad place, but it's really not. Like,
oh yes, I couldn't agree more. Like the future is bright, and I think so. Like I think movies try to scare us. I think the media tries to scare us with, shoving it down our throats, saying that like the internet's bad. But think of how much opportunity it's brought, and how many people, which I want to talk about this in a second, but like how many people are literally creating an income based off of their passions. Like this didn't happen before. It was always the 9 to 5. If you got to have a passion, like a passion project that brought you money, like you were lucky. And now that's like starting to become the norm. Mm-hmm. And I'm so excited for that. And I'm so glad that you said that, because it does, it usually does, when you start something, it's kind of messy, right? Like, and I think that goes for literally something as big as the internet. It's messy. It's not there yet. But the more we understand it and the more we can see, okay, this is where we need to fix this. This is where we need to tweak. It can evolve into something really awesome.
100%.
And yeah, like I love that you said that. So kind of going into like passion income, I want to hear what your projections are for, the internet, social media for, 2021.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was doing some research for this article that I published the other day, and I was really just diving into what the American dream is and was and is like, what are the differences for all the different generations? Because, we have different dreams according to like if there was a world war going on, or if there was like the industrial age was coming upon us and we were building railroads across the country. And like really when it comes down to it, it's freedom. Yeah. That's what the American dream is. It's freedom from whatever we're moving away from, right? And so it seems like we do that pretty well as a country. Obviously,
I agree. Yeah.
Say what you want, like wherever you are. But like, in my opinion, I think that is what we're really good at. And with my travels around the world, I realized how much of a priority convenience is to us as Americans, as well as I think in Europe, Australia, New Zealand, like a lot of those types of countries are very much like, our gas stations are quick and they're clean and they're efficient and are like this, that, and the other. Like so many of our processes are about moving away from suffering, I guess you could say. Yeah. And so a lot of these other countries in the world are still trying to figure it out. And so like we're lucky enough to have privilege. And I think that is number one, is like realizing like, like we do have privilege. So Absolutely. how can we acknowledge it and use it to help other people? Yeah. And so that being said, circling back on the American dream, I think technically, like, if you're born in 1995, you're Gen Z, right? And so the next generation is this, like, Generation Alpha, right? Yeah. And so that's cool to me, because we're moving away from, like, the letters and we're moving towards that Greek, like, symbolism,
Yeah, it's a huge,
And so it's ironic at the same time when you think about, okay, well, like, we're starting a new system, a new process, and it's right at the same time that the internet's cruising. And then the generation after that is Generation Beta, which is hilarious to me, because in tech terms, beta is trying something out, seeing if your new process worked. Yeah. You start with your your alpha project and you put it out there and you see if it works.
Yeah.
And so I'm seeing that as like, okay, well, the next like 10, 20, 30 years of these kids that are being born with complete access and being fully immersed in the internet and not knowing anything different, I think it is our responsibility right now to help them be set up for success.
Yeah.
And so I think more people should be building more things all the time. Like, and that's what I preach a lot with a lot of the community things that I'm running right now, is that like, yo, I really don't care what community you're building. Build something to compete with me. I don't care. Like, it's not about that to me. Mm-hmm. To me, it's about cooperation, you know? Let's operate together. Like, let's solve these problems and let's set it up really nicely, because the internet makes it really easy to collaborate.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, I can plug my own platform and we can talk about Office Party all day, but like, in my opinion, that's not the goal. The goal is just to like, just get out there and build something that's helping someone else. And I think community definitely is for sure the future of social. I think we're going to be seeing a difference in how we use social. I think paid social is the way.
Yeah.
And if you don't agree with me, go pay for some social media and let me know how it goes. Go pay for a course. Go pay for like, go put some value where someone's asking for value. And so when I first started this kind of like journey of, you know, understanding like who I am and what I can share with people, I wanted to create the challenge of like, just make $1 on the internet. And then I was like, well, actually, before you make $1, spend $1 on the internet.
Ooh.
Go see what it does for you.
Yeah.
Like, go invest in something that you think is worthy, because there's all types of things out there. And I've noticed that the more money I spend on supporting the things that I want, I get it back 10 times back, you know, or 100 times back.
Yes.
And so every course I bought, I'm like, whoa, like, okay, that just made me 10x the money, because it gave me 10x the ideas and it expanded my brain 10 times over, you know?
Oh my gosh. I love that. And that's a whole like energetic thing that we could talk about, is like what you put into it, you get back. And I think we were talking about this actually before. I'm like, I'm getting a new laptop next week. You're like, ooh, I love when people do that and invest in technology. Like, you're gonna get it back. And I love that so much. And that is a huge portion of, I feel like, success in general, is connecting to that energy, that abundance mindset, which I feel like even just hearing you talk, you have that, you embody that without even trying, because you're like, with my business, I help people achieve their dreams, but I don't even care if they make the same product as mine. Just go out and do stuff. I want you to go do stuff. And that alone, like, there's so much abundance for everyone. And with the internet too, like, it allows that. Like, we can have competitors, but we're all going to be successful. Like, I love that you said that. But
yeah, so like, I one more thing I think I could add to that is, like, I'm seeing the future on the internet is 3 different things of like what you can do to get started. One is just be a creator, create something. And I think we're seeing that word specifically evolve right now, where creator before might have been like a YouTube creator or a podcast creator or any format of like a content creator. But what I'm seeing in the future is creator is so much more expansive. Creator is someone who scales without permission. So I don't care what you're building. Like, build an app, build a Shopify store, like, write a book, like, just go out there and just like scale what you're doing, because if you're not scaling, then you're trading your time for money, and it's just like this whole process that's like not super on an energetic plane. It's not good for your health.
Yeah.
Like the American dream used to be about like getting this job, right? And
yeah.
this job would provide you with security and it would provide you with freedom. But like, I think if I could have changed it, we should have never done the job thing.
Yeah.
We should have never done the college thing. We should have figured out how to do this apprentice master thing.
Yeah. Did you go to college?
I went for like 3 months, yeah.
See, I love that. It's like, you don't always have to have a degree. I know it's really helpful for people. Sorry, that was a really random question. But I totally agree, though, with when it comes to, like, the apprentice master, like, and instead of trading your time, like, start scaling. Start, like, figure out how, like, my thing, I cannot, like, and I know everyone's different, but, like, working an hourly job, like, you have to be here from 9 to 5 or this time to this time. Even if you're done with your work, you have to be there. I can't do it.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and that's something that you talk about too, is like, you feel that we're going to move away from that 9 to 5 because we're going to start seeing more passion projects with the rise of internet. And I love that. And something else that you said too was this creator, right? Instagram, kind of, you know, paraphrasing what you said in your article, Instagram started as a platform for creators to post about what they saw in the world. And it has turned into a place where now it's kind of like a fans page, because
going from what you saw to what you want people to see.
Yes.
You
yes.
know?
And then the fan, like, it almost like segregated us, where there were the people that were able to travel and they can post about it. And then there's the fans who aspire to be like that,
but had no idea how to. And there was no process and no one talked about it. It was just this weird, like, I'm an influencer and I'm an idol and I'm going to show you exactly what it's like. And then and then it turned into this whole weird thing where, like, so many people were talking about they were trying to show their process, but it was just weird because, like, a lot of them didn't really have a process. They just were, like, beautiful or, like, and nothing against beauty, but, like, that did take a lot of people really far, you know?
Totally. Especially, like, I feel like I would say 2005 to, like, 2015, I'm sorry. To, like, probably even, like, last year-ish. I mean, still it happens, but, like, I feel like Instagram, especially, and social media in general, it was all about, like, the looks, the perfect aesthetic, like, creating this appearance of a perfect life. And now we're going away from that. And I think that goes into what you were saying, too, with where we're headed with social media is more of a community aspect. And I love that. It's more of, like, instead of just idolizing all these people, like, it's more of creating your own community of like-minded people that are building each other up.
Yeah.
Instead of, like,
they say the difference between an audience and community is which way the chairs face.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
You know? And to me, we could take that even a step further, and it's like think about it like at a concert, right? When you're watching someone up on stage, every single person is faced forward. Mm-hmm. And there's this, like, person that's just holding all this space, or, like, they're just like, I am this and I'm going to give you this. And don't get me wrong, like, I love concerts and festivals. I mean, that's such a vibe. Like,
yeah.
And I hope they come back.
Oh my gosh,
but
yes.
I think I don't know. I would imagine that it's just such a different vibe if the chairs are all facing each other and there was almost like a and maybe a concert's not even the best example, but I was just thinking about this thing the other day where it's like, if everyone is facing each other and there's no central source, there's no like one person who's in the middle. First of all, that's really exhausting for whoever that person is. Mm-hmm. We see that over and over. Artists can't really survive. They don't make it through the health side of it. So many influencers deal with all this crazy anxiety and all these pressures. It's not healthy for them either. And if you like someone like that, then I would hope that you would not want them to be feeling that way, and that you would be taking it on with them. So you're in a community of people that are all sharing that energy, sharing that attention that's being shared in and out of that person's life, and just building each other, you know? And so when there's no central source, then it can connect to, you know, if you're thinking about it on a spiritual side, it's like, if there's no central source, then you're just connecting to you are source. Like, it's just like the community is the source, right? Like, that's where the energy originates. It's coming from this collective vibe rather than like one person who's in charge of this whole event and this whole thing, and they're having to deal with a million people's opinions, and like, it just gets crazy, you know?
I love that you said that. I couldn't agree more. And it's unhealthy almost being on both sides, to be honest. And I think that kind of goes back too with your, you know, your take on having business partners and growing together. And it like, the collective energy is so much stronger than just one person. And when we put that pressure on one person, that it's so easy to crumble.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever heard the 28 Club or whatever?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just like, that's heavy.
So yeah, so the 28 Club, for anyone that's not familiar, it's essentially all these like really famous musicians, you know, stars. They seem to all pass away by the age of 28. It's so, because it's so much pressure. It really is. And But I think something that we kind of talked about before we even got started too with Office Party is with I guess you don't consider yourselves founders. With the team that created it, you guys are users, and you guys don't want to be like the Mark Zuckerberg. You want to be in the community. You guys are just the users too. You just happen to have started it. So like, what's like the mindset there, and like how is that dynamic working?
Yeah. So first of all, we're trying. I think this is going to be a hard one to accomplish, but we definitely talk about it a lot as a team. Is like, what is a user? And a user is someone who uses, and it's weird because like we use that term in two places. One is social media, you're a user of a platform, and then two is drugs.
Yeah.
Like usually when you're a user of drugs, it's not like medicine. It's like you're
an addict.
You're an addict. Like you're a user. It's like it's this suffering like type of negative connotation with that word. So we're joking, not joking. We're like actually trying to implement this, but it's basically like they're humans, but they're not humans. It's HUE with the two little dots. Humans. So hue, like color, like energy, like excitement, like enthusiasm. I don't know. So we're kind of toying with that.
I love it.
So I guess to put it in perspective, like, yeah, we have our founding team, but over time, if we do our process right, then I don't necessarily believe that we would always be this like, there's not this like CEO type of vibe. And so between myself and my two partners, as soon as we raise our Series A, our plan is to officially change our titles. So there's no more of this, like, then people don't need to hear about us as like CEO and like CMO and like all these like typical traditional titles. And so we're moving into this space where like my two partners are the seer, and the alchemist, and then my title is guide.
I love it.
And so it's been much more of a expansive title to take on, where it's like, I don't want to be like a chief marketing officer.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't want to be a chief.
Yeah.
Second of all, marketing, I hate that word. Let's get rid of that.
Yeah.
And an officer, like,
sounds way.
Those are like three words that are just like weird.
Not aligning. Like it's hard to. They're so rigid, and some people align with that. That's great, but like a lot of us don't. And I think that's something too. I love that you guys have kind of honed in on your own titles, and it makes in a way that makes sense to you guys, because we put titles on ourselves or use words that actually don't align with us. And I've noticed that within myself too. I actually had an Akashic Records reading. I don't know if you're into that kind of stuff, but I was asking her all these questions, and she came back with it being like, you're putting these words, like these weird like words that like feel uncomfortable to you, so you're pushing away like the actual concept of it. And it's almost like when you're interviewing someone and you ask them a question, they don't understand the question, so you rephrase the question so they understand. It's almost like you have to do that with yourself, and like the way that you talk about yourself, and like I guess the titles, quote unquote, that you give yourself. Like if something's not feeling right, it feels rigid, then word it differently. How do you rework the title or rework the questions that you're asking yourself?
Yeah, I think just like asking yourself, what are the words you use every day? I mean, there's so many funny ones out there, like morning, right?
Yeah.
Good morning.
Huh.
I've done a study on that one. It could go both ways, but it's just like starting to understand like the etymology. I do those types of researches all the time where I'm like, okay, what is this word actually based on? And it's, it tracks back into Old French and Old English, and it actually derives from this or whatever. And then it gives me a whole entire new context on what that actually means. And so that is a big thing that I'm very intrigued by for the future, is that we are inside of the information age. And so it's our job to train our minds to sift through that and to know what is right or wrong, or what's true or what's not. And obviously we're dealing with a lot of that stuff right now with politics on like, okay, let's fact check this and that. But like, the future is even worse. Like once these deep fakes and all these things come in, you could virtually get any person and they could say anything, and you could watch them do anything. Like it's going to be, and they're already working on this. This is like a thing. Like you can watch Donald Trump say anything you want him to say, right?
So scary.
So like, I think the thing that we need to solve is verification, first of all, like what's real and what's not. And I think we're moving towards that.
Yeah.
But I think just verifying your own self, like what are the words you speak? And like when you do talk about like if you're trying to be a CEO, like are you really a chief executive officer? Like is that really true to like your soul? Is that true to like your heart? You know?
Yeah.
And like probably not. Like you're probably not a CEO, even if you like try to hold the position.
Yeah, I feel like there's few people that would be like, yeah, that's totally me.
Yeah, I think most people are like awkwardly kind of given that title just because they're really good at being executive, or they're really good at like task management, or just like cruising and like being super forward. But like in reality, like your soul is probably some other beautiful artistic name, you know?
Yeah, I love that. And I think that goes in tandem with like the future of where we're headed, like with this like passion income that we're creating. Like we also get to create the new systems that we do and create new roles essentially. And I think understanding, yeah, like yourself and like what your sole purpose is, which I mean is so, I mean, we're always seeking that, right? But like understanding what the things that make you feel aligned or alive, like you have those feelings for a reason. And I think words are so powerful, like you're saying. Like how can we step away from, you know, even just the rhetoric of, okay, we have a CEO, we have a CFO, we have this and this, and like, and then it all trickles down. Like that has worked, and it might still work for certain companies, but it's worked in the past, but we're now evolving. And so even I have, you know, my listeners are like small business owners for the most part, or, you know, really involved with social media, whatever it is. And that's what's cool about this age, is that we get to make it whatever we want. And when we do, like when we make things that are more aligned with us instead of trying to fit the mold, you're going to see the exponential growth, like I've seen with you, for example, like, and you're going to start getting energized by what you're doing. And when you give yourself, you change the titles of CEO to the guide, or whatever feels aligned with you, that is telling your brain subconsciously, like, okay, we're on the right path, instead of just like the dumbest little things like the title can stop you in your tracks.
100%. And I think that's a really big thing with, I mean, we could go into like what value is and what leverage is and all that stuff, but I think one of the coolest parts about being a creator, someone who does scale without permission, is that rebellious side. Like I think we should always be changing the system.
Yeah.
That's the American dream. It's moving away from the suffering, moving away from like that rigid, like, and moving more in a little bit more into the chaotic, or more into that space. I'm trying to conceptualize it. I'm writing this book, and right now I'm calling it the rainbow space because I don't really know what else to call it.
Love that.
And just moving in between those two spaces. And I think they're both wrong and they're both right. So it's just like, where are you at? And like, if you're feeling so flowy and you don't know how to organize your system, then yeah, like drop in, like go ham on being a little more rigid and like lock in your process.
Yeah.
But if you're trying so hard to like have this like, I wake up at 6 a.m. and I take a cold shower and then I like do this, this and this and this and this, and like, yo, like just stop doing that. Like just like understand that you should just flow a little bit more, let it come over time. Like I don't care how many good ideas you hear about what process you should do, like trust that it's going to take you all year before you're even remotely good at it. Maybe even 2 years. Like if you want to meditate, think about it in a 2-year or a 10-year span. Like in 10 years I'll be a meditator. Or like in 10 years I don't know, the shower one's easier in my opinion, but like give it 6 months. Like take the time it takes to build a really good habit. Yeah. You know, and people get lost in that. And so anyways, circling back to that, kind of like rebellion is just always challenging the system and always moving through it, and like just realizing that your future is both right and wrong, and your past is both right and wrong, and like all you can really do is just keep cruising with where you're at and just being okay with it and never like judging yourself. And like I don't know, I could just like keep spitballing all these like little things, but that's just kind of like where I've spent the last 2 years of my life, is just like, all right, I'm not perfect, you know. And like I think a really good example of this in a physical manifestation is like different types of like church vibes.
Yeah.
Where in my opinion the best conversations that you could have in more of the spiritual, it doesn't even have to be church, just like a spiritual group, people that are just like looking for answers and looking for healing in any format.
Yeah.
I think the number one thing you can bring to the table is your weaknesses. Like, yep, I didn't meditate today. Why? I don't know. Here's why.
Yeah.
Here's why it didn't work for me. Or like, here's why it did work for me. Or like whatever practice, whatever healing you're trying to accomplish, and like coming into online communities, like moving into those spaces and just being like super authentic and true to yourself, and not trying. I think we need to move away from that like hustle porn is what they call it, of like wake up at 5 a.m., beat the sun up, do your 100 push-ups. Like it's just like, here's my 5-step process to becoming a millionaire. Like, yo, like let's cancel that.
Yeah,
for sure. And just move into this like heart space of like, yo, like we can all actually make a lot of money, but like here's why I'm not right now, so I could use some help. Or you know what I mean? Being more like open, like normalizing that weakness side of things. So anyways, that was like a roller coaster of thoughts.
No, you said so many amazing things. I loved that so much. And one thing that you talked about that I really loved was not beating yourself up for, not following a flow. And that's something I actually learned. Like, I mean, I know this. I've known this, within the past few years, but it's understanding your process and letting yourself like be okay with that. And there are seasons of your life where maybe you're feeling more like, I want to set my schedule, and then you're like, I need to just flow. And I feel like everyone's so different, and everyone I talk to, I feel like has a different creative process or a work process. And for example, like for me, I work best in the mornings. Like mornings, my brain is on fire. I can get stuff done, and then it hits a certain hour and I'm like worthless, like straight up worthless. And I have friends who can work through the middle of the night. That's where they get all their inspiration. And I think, like you said, there's this old, like, I guess, old way of thinking, I guess I want to call it, with the wake up at 5, take a cold shower, do all, like, work out, do all these things. And that might work for some people.
Yeah, it works great.
Yeah, but, like, not for everyone. And
for sure.
I noticed this too, like this weekend. So like I said, I booked myself a hotel. I went away, and I went in thinking, oh, I'm just going to like be creating the whole time, and I'm going to find all this inspiration, blah, 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 blah. And I got there around like 2. I like kind of sat in there, and then I had an appointment with a human design specialist. Do you know human design?
Yeah.
We should talk about that in a second. But, and then after, I'm like, I'm tired. I'm going to go get dinner, and then I'm going to, like, watch TV. And I did. And, like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, should I be, like, doing all those things that I was thinking about doing? And I'm like, I just got to trust the process, especially after talking to the human design, like, girl. She's like, you just have to follow, like, when you're wanting to do something, do it. And when you're not wanting to do something, like, don't do it.
Stop trying to, like, force yourself to come up with this idea or this process, or trying to, like, make that edit or design that thing or like whatever. It's like we put so much rigid emphasis on it, when really it should be way more creative. And like it might come at 2 a.m. after doing nothing and eating food all night, I don't know.
Totally. Like everyone's flow is different, and like to understand your energy like is so crucial. And so I watched TV all night, and then I woke up and I went downstairs, got a coffee, and I was on fire for like 3 hours, and I got everything that I wanted to get done in 3 hours.
And so it's like you're like judging yourself for like that time period, like, oh, I'm watching TV, but I have all these things I need to do. I need to do this. I need to do this. I need to do this. But like in reality, you're just hurting yourself. Your future is not right. Like what you think you need to do isn't right. What you need to do is just be present with yourself. Like just chill, like cruise. And I think that's to try to like create tangibility out of it. I think some things that we can all work on, and this is something I'm trying to instill within my team, is like a couple things. One, drop in meetings. No meetings are ever mandatory on my team. So like here's the time periods. If you want to be there, you can be, but just like if you want to be there for 5 minutes and you're not feeling like you're adding emphasis or adding value, or not emphasis, value, if you're not adding value to the call or the meeting, then like just dip out, like just leave. Like I literally don't care. I actually don't really want you there. Like
interesting.
You're just sitting looking at a screen, and you're not like, you're actually taking the value.
Yeah.
Like rather than giving the value. So that's one. And then the second thing that I think we can do for ourselves and for other people is understanding synchronous, I think it's asynchronous and synchronous work schedules. I don't know if that pronunciation is right.
I'm catching what you're putting down.
It's a thing if you look it up. But essentially, with the fact that so much of our work is on these inside of chat apps or inside of emails or inside of notification, like it's just always going. Like it seems like work doesn't really ever turn off anymore. As we are breaking the 9 to 5, it almost is like going over like the other way where it's
so
just like
true.
Always work. And so I think honoring for ourselves and other people the fact that like if it takes 3 days to get back, that's okay. Like, yeah, I get some things are more time sensitive and like but we can communicate about that. And so like with the team specifically, it's just like if I send messages out at 2 a.m, I'm sorry. That's just like when it came to me.
Yeah.
But if it takes you 24 hours to get back to me, you don't need to get up at 6 a.m. and get right back to it. And so just creating these like boundaries, I guess, between people and in our work schedules really does allow that judgment to dissolve. So I'm not judging anyone on my team. I hope they're not judging me. And then also with myself, like if I send myself a task or send myself a message, right, to do something, like just being okay that it like might take me 4 days to get to, and that's better because then I did it right.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
No, I love that. And I think like being okay with like your flow. And I guess my next question for you is, do you find it hard or do you find it hard to find people that understand your flow or that like flow with you, or how do you find these people that like get it and you can flow together, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of that really comes with that initial base, right? So I got lucky, but I'm also not lucky because I worked really hard for it, was to find my partners. And through my partners, we found everyone on our team, and our team finds our team. And so I don't really believe in like making hires or like finding people that like just fit the job role. It's kind of more like, who do you know? And I don't care if they're like subpar of like what we need, but if they're down to just like cruise and work really hard. And so that's where that kind of like apprentice thing comes back in, where it's like the apprentice and the master love the master for different reasons. And so when we break that down, I'm seeing as our team continues to scale and we're finding more and more people that are interested in the flow. If anything, they're like stoked on our flow because it's something they've never seen before. It's like it is something that's kind of fun to tap into, but I think it's because from the get, we were a little more rebellious on how we were doing things.
Yeah.
And so when I say like, yo, I don't care if you're on meetings or not, they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm down for that. Like, but then on the other side, sometimes I blast people with like 50 messages on Telegram and I'm just like here we go. Like, and I overwhelm people all the time on the other end of the spectrum. But I think just like, yeah. That's a good question. I don't really know the answer.
Yeah, maybe that's like an intangible, way to explain things. Because I think even just you can feel energy too. Like even like talking with you, I'm like I feel your wave. Like I don't know. I'm like not even like that normally, but like 100%. You do have you should know this. Like you have such a presence about you. Like it's crazy. It's so crazy. It's so powerful. So, but yeah, I mean, I love that advice though of like, be okay with being rebellious and like getting into your flow and kind of going. So human design,
a little bit, nothing crazy.
Yeah, that's how I kind of am too. I did this 90-minute session yesterday. Just understand, like she was telling me about me, but I like don't know all the things. Right. If that makes sense. Right. But the one thing about or I guess a couple of things that have helped me with human design is, knowing my manifestation type or my manifestor type. Do you know yours?
I think it's like I think I'm just a generator.
You're a generator?
Yeah.
I feel like you'd be a manifester.
Well, I've been told that, but then when I like fill the thing out, it's just like generator.
Really?
So I don't know.
That's interesting. Or like projector?
I mean, I definitely surround myself with a lot of projectors and a lot of manifestors. So, like, I don't know if I'm just, like, the caboose that just kind of, like, strings it together or, like, I don't know.
Interesting.
Or, like, I just leverage the fact that I don't really know how it works, but, yeah.
I'm actually fascinated by that. I want to dig in. I almost, like, want to get you a session, and I just want to sit in and listen to it. Yeah. But, yeah, I feel like, so I'm a manifesting generator, and I feel like just understanding that, like, and, like, how I work is so huge. And there's, like we kind of said, like there's so much to human design that goes way over. It's like you almost need an expert, but
yeah, well, one, that's a great place to spend money on the internet. First of all,
yeah,
finding these people that can help you understand yourself, like that's the new college degree. That's the new like place to invest. Because if you know, like, let's say you know your Enneagram numbers, you know, like, you get into a little bit of astrology, you get into, like, human design, like, there's, like, a million of them. Basically, they're archetypes, right? Basically, they're matrices of information that's categorized in a way that is relatable. And so the same way that a piano has 88 keys, the piano has its archetypes, and it has its, you know, matrix of how the sounds work. And every workout system has the matrix, has the archetype. I mean, it's the pattern of the universe, basically. It's
absolutely.
Like these things, right? And so investing into whatever feels good for you, they don't have to be like weird or like spiritual necessarily. It's just more like checking into your personality and your like space on earth. And then I think investing in that is super powerful, because I think it seems like there's this collective rise of that information. So it's like, I know that I work really well with like an 8 and a 1 on the Enneagram, right?
Oh.
And I know that as a generator, I need to have those, you know, manifesting generators, or I need to have those projectors around me. And so it's just like, it makes it way easier to connect, where it's like, okay, I see you, and like in this space and time, like I'm working on this project, and I could see how you're doing. It's just like, just being aware of who people are, and that can solve those problems of finding partners or finding people that help you along your mission, your dream, you know, your vision, probably a lot faster. Yeah.
I love everything you just said, because I think it is, so important to know yourself and how you work. And especially when you're in like a workplace too, and this goes for anything in life, I feel like, but like, for the example of a workplace, being able to articulate, hey, this is how I work and how I function. Like, this is how I'm going to be my best self for you and like work the best for you. And going back to what you said before, it's like understanding people's flow and like letting them do that. Like, if you have that knowledge and you know, for example, I work well with manifesting generators. I work well with a 1 and an 8. Like, you even knowing that about yourself, it's so helpful to find, like, surround yourself with more of that. And we're all different for a reason, and we don't all have to be the same archetype to work well together. Normally you don't work well together when you're all the same thing, right?
100%. I mean, I would say my 2 partners and my girlfriend are all like like we're like, none of us are the same at all. Like, we, like, especially me and my girlfriend, we barely relate on anything.
Really?
It's almost like that, like, she's almost like literally completely opposite, and originally it created a lot of like arguments, or just like things that we just couldn't quite agree on, but over time it's actually allowed us to kind of like divide and conquer.
I love that.
And so like in social settings or in work settings or whatever, like her and I are able to, like, because we work together but we don't work together, and so like it's cool to come together and then chat, brainstorm, and then we like both leave inspired and go back to our places. I don't know. I think it's super valuable to be surrounded by people that you don't agree with.
Yeah.
Because they say, so Naval is like my favorite. He's like my guy. So Naval on Twitter.
Okay.
Or his podcasts are amazing. It's like 3 to 5 minute podcasts, and it's just like like just like straight fire.
I love that.
And
wait,
so,
what's his podcast called? Same thing?
I think it's the same thing, yeah.
Okay.
And so his whole thing, or one of his things, is that like your world view is your world. And so when you break that down, you have to understand that actually the only way that you can evolve is by eliminating your blind spots. Like, how can you see everyone else's worldview so that you have a better sense of the world that you live in?
Yeah.
Because if all you're ever doing is like staying in your own world and you're not ever connecting or sharing, back to the whole internet thing, like, please share. Everyone share. Like, share more, because that really is how we evolve. And so, like, one, eliminate blind spots. Realize that there are people on the other side of the world that they hate you because of just who you are, or whatever. Like, or maybe it's not even like that. It's more of like religious backgrounds are not the same, or like just any format of it. And so understanding and like coming to people with like sounds cheesy, but that open heart space, that love, that like acceptance of just like, wow, I never thought about it in that way. And so like here, for example, with this book I'm writing, basically I want to create the concept of like, the book's going to be called To Go There, Go In There. And so it's basically like a comprehensive guide on all things said to be true, right? Because everyone always wants to know, is that true? Like, is that the truth? Is that the way?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, well, the only way to know the truth is to like actually go fully in on that. Like, if you want to know if meditation works for you, probably go do like a Vipassana, which is like the 10-day silent thing, right?
Yeah.
Or like, if you want to know if being vegan is like your thing, probably just do it. Like, just go all the way and put a time limit on it.
Yeah.
I got to do that this last year. I cruised on it for like 2 months, and like I decided that it's not fully for me, but I love what it did to me. And so now like my worldview has more in it. I eliminated a lot of blind spots on like what I thought was good for my body and what's not.
Yeah.
And so like by going all the way in on something with the idea that like it may or may not work, it's okay. You don't have to commit to it for your lifetime. Just go check it out.
Yeah, like getting your hands dirty and all the things. Like, I totally agree. And I think that's a lot of, there's so much turmoil on social media, especially right now with like politics and everything. And I think you're so right. Like, if you want to know the truth, dig in and like try to understand the other side. That's something that I took debate in 6th grade.
Yeah.
And that was like the number one thing. They're like, hey, you need to study the other side of the argument. So like, I mean, from like a debate standpoint, so you could argue it back, but like
100%.
But it can play into life too. Like, if there is a topic that you want to know more about, study all sides of it. Don't study the side that feels always aligned with you, if that makes sense. Like, you want it to be a comprehensive knowledge. And from there, I feel like if more of us could do that, like, there would be such a rise in like the collective consciousness. Like, I feel like, and I think we're on the cusp. I think, kind of relating it back to the internet, like you were saying, we're in this new era of we're so used to all this information, but now it's being shown, like the dark side is being shown, where we don't know what's true and what's not. And so many of us are committing to certain sides, where I feel like we're now that it's like purging itself almost and becoming so relevant, like now we're starting to see, okay, this is the danger of the internet, or the danger of social media, or the danger of not understanding the other side of things. Like, how can we change this? How do we course correct so we can have a brighter tomorrow,
100%. And that was what's really interesting about kind of taking on this concept of the book over the last 8 months, because of just the craziness of what's going on in the world and just how many things are coming into the knowledge of like the mainstream, right? And so like as I'm writing this book, I'm conceptualizing like, okay, what is this rainbow space? What is the chaotic? What is the rigid? What is the plan? What is the like there's two sides within everything. And so when I'm breaking it down, I started writing about colors, and I was writing about the rainbow, and I was like, okay, well, how can I be super hyper aware of like the LGBT community? How can I like make sure that I'm never speaking with bias towards and with the rainbow, which is very much a part of their symbolism, right? And so I had to like go down and research, just because I've never had that perspective, because I've just quite honestly never opened my eyes to it, because I just like it just wasn't in my worldview. Yeah. And so as I started doing that, I started having way more love for all these people, and I'm like, well, this is actually a really beautiful community. This is a vibe. And then I started writing about, okay, well, like with color, there's black and there's white. Okay, well, how do I make sure that I'm not being prejudiced in my communication towards any skin colors? And I was just like kept going down all these blind spots that I had from just being born in southern Missouri, and I just didn't. I'm still expanding as a human, and so to me, my biggest thing is like, I'm just building in public. I'm here to show you my weaknesses. I'm here to say that like, yeah, like I didn't have that love for maybe these types of groups, just because maybe I just wasn't ever around it. And so like giving people that space on the other side of it too is just like, and I don't know, like at the end of the day, I'm just trying to be super open, honest, and authentic with who I am, and just saying like, I'm down to eliminate any worldview. inside of me. I'm super down. So like send me down rabbit holes. Like where do I go next? What else can I learn about, you know? And so I've enjoyed doing it with all kinds of religions as well. All kinds of just like practices, like spiritual practices, all kind like breath work, meditation. Like I'm just like, I just want to know where people are at so I can ultimately like love them and accept them more.
Yeah.
So the only way to do that is eliminate your own blind spots.
I love that though. And you go down these rabbit holes and that's how you expand. Like that is, I mean, we're all born into different circumstances and we can't control those circumstances. And, you know, similar to you, I was born in, you know, Salt Lake City, Utah. It's very, you know, it's very bland almost here. We don't have a lot of diversity. So how are we supposed to know those things? You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. And just like being aware that like, how can you diversify your worldview? Like, like probably go out of your way to find someone or like go be in a space where you are a minority. And that's what's been really enjoyable about living on this small island that I live on, where it's like kind of like I am a minority. And so I'm having to learn, you know, and I also experienced that in my time down in South America, just living in these spaces where like people just hated me for just walking down the street. You know, and I think that's what's really beautiful about a lot of the movements going on right now in the world is just like people are working towards, ideally, if we do it with peace, we're helping people evolve their worldviews. And
we're pointing out blind spots. And I think it's all about approach, I think always, and having that tolerance, knowing like we're all born to different things. And that I love what you said with like the movement. Like if we can do it peacefully, like we're all realizing our blind spots. And this could be something that is so major and so awesome. But of course, I mean, we're human and there's going to be, you know, faults within it. But I feel like the whole movement in general, like it's beautiful and like it's huge and pivotal right now. And if we can take it as, oh, this is, you know, I'm here on this planet to learn. I'm here to, to soak in knowledge and, you know, just consume as much as I possibly can to like better evolve. And this is a huge opportunity for those that like us, or I guess anywhere, any circumstance. This is such a prime example of there are things that you just don't know. You don't know about them. And now this is your opportunity. It's being presented. How can we take this and learn and change and start evolving into, a better future?
Yeah. And that's what I think is what's really cool about this Clubhouse app that's kind of going around right now. It's super hyper exclusive and like you have to know someone to get an invite. Like it's literally the only way you can get in there. And once you're in there, it's basically like it's just like drop-in audio chats. And the way that they're doing it's really beautiful. And it's just cool because a lot of people are creating these audio chats where it's like, I am this, change my mind, like help me change my mind, like, or I just don't understand this, like how do I understand this better? And so people are kind of creating conversation around that. And so again, back to that whole like coming to a space of like where people are at. And I think in the spiritual like healing setting is a really good way to just visualize how this works. But like coming to that space and just being super open and honest about your weaknesses or your blind spots and just being like, I'm not gonna lie, I've just like in my 25 years of life, I've just never been around this. So like I'm just genuinely interested like at what I can do.
Me.
You know what I mean? And so I think just going into more spaces like that is probably something we could all do. And that's like, even for me, like I want to be able to do that way more, you know? And that's what's fun about creating a team too, is like we already have decent amount of diversity on our team. And so it's fun to just kind of like just be open with people and be like, yo, like that's cool that you're this and you have these beliefs, and like that's cool that you spent your whole life in that space, so tell me about it. Like just spend a second just understanding, you know?
No, I think that's huge. And I love that concept of Clubhouse. Let's kind of jump in. I want to know more about that and kind of the apps that you're currently into. Like what platforms are you on? Because I know you're off Instagram.
Yeah.
So we should talk about that too.
Yeah, so that's been a vibe. It's definitely been weird. I wanted to like go back on it the other day because I was excited to like share something, and I realized that I basically threw away this like little audience that I'd kind of built up over time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, where do I share this information? Like, I'm stoked about this project that we just launched this last week, and I'm like, oh, I guess I just don't really need to share it. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, I just quit Instagram because of, I think it's just like, for me, I mean, there's all kinds of reasons. There's a lot of stuff with like the way that the ad systems are built, with the way that the business model of Instagram is. I don't believe in the fact that it is moving towards this mall market shopping space. I thought it was really weird that they changed the like where you get your notifications to the shop. Like, there's like weird little like moves like that where I was like, yo, like that was like a bold move just to be like, we want your attention.
Yeah.
Like, we want to trick you into clicking this thing.
To buying, yeah.
And like, I get it. Like, people, like, I'm sure if I talked to their team, they'd be like, well, according to data, this is why we do it. And I'm just like, yo, but like, like, come on. Like, yo, like, really? And then I also just feel like it was just kind of dying for me. Like, my space on there was kind of over, and I think that's something that happens is like, it's the creator life and the cycle, like the life and death cycle of being a creator is like, I don't think brands are necessarily supposed to last. Like, how is it supposed to last when you're creating a brand around yourself or around these ideas or these concepts, but you're changing? So you're gonna go build a group of people around a thing, a concept, a version of you, and then you're gonna try to uphold that for more than 5 years. Like, they're just gonna only know you. Like, and so that's why I'm really stoked about the future of like community-based apps and just like chat apps and just like quicker life cycles where it's just like letting things cruise in and out, and like, it's okay. We don't need to hold on to our followers on Instagram. Like, try something else. There's like 500 other websites where you can start to establish yourself, and if anything, you probably have significant better chance to do that, you know? And so that's kind of one thing that I'm working on inside the course is like understanding the difference between hunter platforms and gather platforms. So back to that whole like village concept, right? So you want to have both, and they're both equally valuable of like finding people and bringing them into your village, you know, and taking care of them. And so, excuse me, that's kind of like what I'm most excited about, is highlighting a lot of these types of things and just honoring and trusting that it's okay for you to move on. And so, like, a little plug on Office Party is theoretically this whole concept would work really well where you go through a certain process and you teach and build in public, and you're showing people what you're doing all the way through, and then you create this series, this like a course, if you will, or just like, and we'll continue to build out modules where it's more than just videos, because right now we're very like video based, but over time you would be able to create in any format you want. So you'd write, you can do photos, you could create slideshows, PDFs, like video, like whatever way you want to show your process, really just like enabling you as a creator.
Cool.
And so my idea of it is like, like productize that process, show people your weaknesses, show them what worked for you. So like, if you're going to meditate, like, go through it, like take a deep dive on it, buy into it, but find a master, find a course that you like, go all the way in on it, and then at the same time document your process, because you probably had a different process. It was probably a little bit different. And so like, show what worked for you, because I guarantee you that you made a link between that master and another apprentice that master wouldn't have been able to affect. You know what I mean? So like, creating this life cycle, and then theoretically, if you create it in that format, you created a product that will never not be around. Like, let's say you made this course and you wanted to charge whatever you feel like is fair for it. That course doesn't ever leave. It's just there because it was a process. It was part of you, and it just holds true to that because you know it worked. It was authentic. It was genuine. You can't be any more true than being a person who moved from weakness to strength and showing that.
I love
you know what
that.
I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, you know, the process of Instagram, kind of talking about like the whole idolizing thing too. Like, I think that whole piece that you just mentioned with showing your progress was completely missed. Like, we had all these idols, these influencers, these celebrities almost, and they just blew up. They're either beautiful or they went on amazing trips because they were able to, or whatever it is, but we didn't see, and maybe they didn't even have a process, like you said, like maybe they just blew up. But that's what I'm seeing people attracted to, is we all want to create our own reality, and when it comes like our own best reality, and when it comes to being a business or selling a product or whatever you're doing, you want, at the end of the day, people want to buy something or do something because it's going to enrich their lives. And maybe this inspiration kick of the past, or of Instagram, was great and it inspired us, but now we want to know, like, how do we actually get there? And I'm personally so sick of everyone being like, yeah, it just fell in my lap. Like, I just suddenly, like, this idea came to me and then we just blew up and it was crazy. And I know that happens to some people, but like most of the time it's not. Most of the time people they have weaknesses. They have to overcome those weaknesses. And I think, like you said, when you're able to bring that to the table and be like, hey, I didn't know how to do this, or I don't know how to do this. I don't understand this. How do I evolve? Like, you become relatable. It becomes that community aspect. Whereas, and I think especially with like the pandemic and everything, we're missing so much in person, like socializing, like communication. Like, we want that sense of community back, and I think it was already due time, but I feel like the pandemic also kind of supercharged that. So I love that you said that.
Yeah, and it was interesting kind of watching that play out, because all these people that were kind of more sharing that authentic way that Instagram might have once been for, where it was very much like inspiring and showing what's going on in the world and just like showing what people are seeing versus like showing yourself off. It seemed like all the people that held that space on Instagram couldn't do it anymore. You couldn't really travel. It was way harder for people to be able to share in that format. And so like it got even worse. Like it turned, I mean, it's just like ironic at the same time. Like OnlyFans took on this like space. It was just like a lot of things happened really quickly that I think a lot of people were like, whoa, okay, here we are. Like, this is what social media looks like now. So, and then when you think about, most people are just chilling. Like they slowed down a lot, and given that so many other people sped up because of that block, right? Like it was like this thing came in and it shifted everyone.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, well, what am I doing? Am I doing nothing, or am I accelerating through this?
Yeah.
There wasn't really like, I don't, at least my circle of people, like maybe I live in a bubble, but like it seemed like everyone around me was just like, yo, this is amazing. Time for new skills. Time for like digital connection. Time for like just something different. Like, let's take advantage of it, And so
I totally agree. And it's interesting too, because this happened, there was the same or a similar shift in business and all of this during the recession in 2008. Like, some of the biggest companies came out of that. And I feel like that's going to be a similar thing here in 2020. I guess, we're almost out of 2020, and I've seen the same thing where some people, like, business wise, I mean, everyone's been affected so differently, and I feel so lucky that it's been more of a winning season for me. But I noticed that too. I love that you articulated that perfectly, where it shook things up, and the people that were, quote unquote thriving maybe before, like, they had to recheck it. And then people that were maybe like struggling, like kind of struggling along, maybe not the word struggle is probably not the right word, chugging along, this happens and it's like, boom, that's it, here we go, this is our time. And there's so many businesses that I saw just blow up, like
100%
during this pandemic. Obviously different industries were affected differently, but it doesn't have to be the end. It can be seen as like, this is a challenge. Like, this is like, there's so much opportunity, like, of a new way of doing things.
Yeah. And I think whatever reason all of these changes happened, I don't know. Like, no one knows. Like, no one knows possibly why anything happens. So, like, I think that's just, it comes back to that whole mindset thing of just like, if I'm not doing it now, am I going to do it tomorrow? Am I like, at what point are you going to acknowledge a shift in your life, no matter what? I don't care what's going on in the world. Like, at what point do you go do that crazy thing that starts it for you, you know? And so, like, whether it's finding a person to do it with and you guys just, like, go into the middle of nowhere for 10 days and just see what happens, and just, like, or, like, whatever type of experience you need. It seems like I want to do that because I've talked about that twice now.
Yeah, maybe it's time.
I did have a sample of that last Monday, which is a point that I'm excited to talk about, where I left my partner and we went on this hike on a Monday, which is like usually pretty intense for our team. It's just like weekend's kind of done. Everyone's like picking things back up, and it usually gets very intense. But I left and we did that hike, and I got back at like 3 p.m. and I was like, well, like, everyone took it easy today. So like, so you're like, I would have taken it easy either way. So like, why don't I just follow what I feel like I need to do type of vibe? So that's kind of like something we're also toying with on the team, is like, maybe Wednesday is the new Monday, like the hump day, like rise up to the Wednesday, go in hard, and then let it slow back down type of vibe, you know, and just let any day be your hump. It doesn't matter anymore. Like, it's not like anyone has offices. Like, doesn't matter when you work with people, and going back to that whole like asynchronous, whatever that word is, schedule, where it's just like, just honoring that it does take time and people are in their flow, and especially like people in their own homes running things from Zoom calls or in whatever format people are working. It's like, it's so much better when it's just like a vibe, instead of like forced and draining and boring, you know?
Yeah, well, and I think, like, relating it to like social media and business too, like, pay attention to those things. And I feel like, so you mentioned this with Instagram and kind of why you left, but you're like, I kind of you know, wasn't there anymore. Like, it wasn't fulfilling me anymore. And I feel like a lot of us are getting to that place too. I feel like I'm in a similar place where I've been trying to make it work and like doing like what I used to do, or the thing, like, I'm still trying to find my place in it, but I almost feel like I'm pushing against the grain. And I think it's exciting to hear that, you know, there's going to be such a shift. There's already becoming such a shift, because there are other platforms other than Instagram. There's other platforms other than TikTok. Like, you can try new things where it's all about understanding your energy and having that vibe, like having that like synchronicity within yourself and what you're doing, and you're gonna thrive there. So maybe Instagram was it for you like a couple of years ago, but now it's not. You're gonna move somewhere else, and you're gonna thrive way more somewhere else.
100%. I mean, and that's the life cycle of a creator. It's like, you might have been some type of creator over here, but like, maybe you should start diving into this concept. And then when you do, and you take on that new skill set, all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's another community. There's a whole entire set of skills and a way to connect with people. And so when you really break it down, people use social media for one, connection, and then they use that connection for establishment, right? And so you're creating somewhat of a network. I mean, when you build a following, or you build connections, or you add people on Facebook, like whatever it is, you're establishing a network. And so when you think about it in that format, it's like, well, how did people have networks before there was social media? They were clearly established. Like, what did it look like? And so, can you do it without Instagram? Can you do it without Facebook? Could you do it completely without the internet? Maybe, maybe not. But like, at the end of the day, the point I'm making is just like, you can get established anywhere.
Yeah.
It's just about building trust. It's about building a really beautiful product. It's about creating a process that works and is valuable and people are into it, and then you can build a community around that. And it's just like, there's so many new ways to do things. It's just about possibly closing your eyes to the thing that's not, or like just being maybe open. I don't know how you want to phrase that, but like, just becoming aware of the fact that like what you're doing isn't working. And if you're frustrated about that, then that just means you should change, like, just chop it. Let's get to it. And so for me, it was Instagram. I was like, I honestly can't imagine growing anything on here anymore. Yeah. So what is this actually serving me? No. Like,
no.
I don't I literally can't envision where it's going to go for me. So what's the point? It's
That's
actually,
so
it's just
true.
pulling from me.
Yeah.
Like I'm still holding on to this network and helping other people. And now that I'm gone, like I'm out of people's network. So if I was part of their network, I'm not there anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like a risk that you're taking, but at the same time, it's understanding, like, or trusting kind of what, like, your energy, like where you're being guided to. And I think, again, like, Instagram can be such a distraction, but also such a tool. But if you feel like you're going against the grain, or you can't envision growing your future, like you said, like, that also is hindering you. Like, you're trying, it's almost like trying to fit those weird titles, like with the wrong verbiage. Like, change up the verbiage, change up the questions you're asking, like change up the platform you're using. Like, it doesn't have to be what everyone else is doing. Like, don't be afraid. If you're sitting here and you're trying, for example, I see this all the time. There's so many people that are still trying to, like, they want to be an influencer, they want to do, like, live that lifestyle, and they're trying and it's not happening. And they're like, what is going on? Like, I'm doing all the right things, like, I'm passionate about what I'm doing, but, like, it's not happening. And to me, I feel like there's something energetically going on. Like, maybe Instagram's not the platform. Maybe it's TikTok. Maybe it's, Clubhouse. Maybe, it could be anything. So I feel like when you're, feeling that, like, resistance, there's a reason that you're feeling that. And there's a different avenue, and it's just that resistance is telling you, like, if you're lit up by it, then I think you're still on the right track. But the resistance is like, okay, good job, but, like, try to course correct. Like, this is like a closed door almost.
Yeah. Well, and just being honest with yourself, asking yourself, like, what would it take to make the change, or to just be, like, I mean, back to this whole concept of just going all the way in on something new. So you do have to change up probably a lot of things. And so just, like, pick one to start with, and maybe it's like, find a coach, like
yeah.
I don't care how much of a master you are at anything, like, you can always learn more. Yeah. And if you are a master fully of something, then, like, go become a master of something else. Like, change your name, move to a new city. Like, I don't know, there's so many ways you can jumpstart, but I think at its core, it's super, super important to change the course of your habits in your brain. And so I think a lot of people do try to teach that and work through it with, like, okay, just start with, like, a cold shower every morning.
Yeah.
But, like, as much as I like to do that, I probably do it maybe, like, once every other week.
Yeah. Well, good on you. That's more than me.
Like, maybe once a month. I don't know. And then I'm just like, okay, yeah, like, that worked or whatever, but it didn't necessarily work. So what else do I need to do? Okay, well, recently I started paying for a private fitness coach, and I'm like, okay, I get this now. I've never been able to do the fitness thing. I've been athletic, or I've been like active in my life in multiple times, but until I had a professional coach who's there, like, showing me fully the way, I'm like, okay, my muscles work like that. I know this thing. I know how to, like, really train my habits in my head to where now, like, my workouts aren't even just my workouts. It goes into my whole entire life. And I'm like, okay, it is so much more. It bleeds in, it's stretching, it's doing all these other things and moving your body in certain ways. And then, like, pairing that with, like, I've also been getting way more into massages, and, like, okay, well, now I'm linking those two things. And so I'm just, like, always, I'm like, okay. And it all changed for me when I started being okay with investing in, like, myself.
Yeah.
Oh,
I love that. That's, like, such a good point too. Like, well, I think speaking to, like, the fitness example, I feel like when you have the coach that connects the dots, where it's like, okay, fitness isn't just about looking good. Fitness is about giving you the ability to do things that you want to do, to be able to hike all the mountains that you hike, or to, even just be able to go on a walk, like, things like that. Like, when you have the coach that can put it into perspective of the bigger picture of what it is that is holding you back, that alone, like, sometimes you just need permission to do that, or you need the explanation, of why you need to do that. Or,
well, and when you're trying to give yourself permission to do anything, because that's actually, like, low key all you can do, or you're in a space of, like, you just don't know how to give yourself permission. To me, and this is just like genuinely authentically working for me.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy forking over money. Like I'm pretty like conservative overall. And like I don't really care what like point of life I get to. I still think I'm going to honor that as part of who I am. And so it's always going to be like, oh, well, I just didn't think I needed to spend that much money on this thing. But then I'm like, why did I not spend money on that way before? Like, and so that's kind of back to what we were talking about before we even started this, was just like, okay, well, some people want to invest money into some things and other people invest them into things that actually work. And so it's just like working in that space of like, okay, well, what's not working for me right now? Maybe it's this laptop. And so like that $2,500 or whatever you're going to have to spend on it, then you're like, oh, boom, now it all works. It all works now.
Yeah. And to the energy behind it, like when you invest in something, you get it back. And I think that goes into also investing in your education or a mentor or something like that. Like, it's different. So when people do like free classes or like a free downloadable PDF, which is great, I don't take as much out of it. Like, I don't have any skin in the game. But when you invest in it, especially like a hefty investment, you're going to do it. Like, you're like, I put like X amount of dollars, like I'm in it. And there's that energy. Like, one, it holds you accountable. And two, like, energy is currency. Currency is energy, right? Yeah. Currency is energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So literally, like what you put out, you get back. And so I really, really love that analogy. But yeah, this conversation, I feel like I could talk to you literally forever. I'm so glad you came on. I'm so glad you stopped by on your quick visit. I feel so honored. But just to kind of like wrap things up, I ask this to everyone that comes in, but what is the best piece of advice, business advice that you've ever gotten?
Yeah, I think I was trying to think about that earlier when I was writing about it. Was very much I don't know. I was trying to think about it, and the first thing that came to mind was the best business advice I ever got was to don't start a business. Like, this person instilled fear inside of me, and they're like, it's really hard. Like, do you understand what liability is? And like, I'm still learning that today.
Yeah.
Like, what liability actually means, and it gets a little scarier as time goes by, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was the best business advice ever for me, because I'm just like, yo, like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? Yeah.
And like, why are you telling me that?
Yeah.
I don't get it. Like, I just genuinely don't understand why you don't think I should. Because like, now that makes me want to even more. You know what I mean?
So it like instilled that drive in you by someone, like by them telling you don't start a business. You're like, what? Why wouldn't I? I need to go figure out why.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Exactly. And then maybe another one was just like, everyone always talks about, oh, like, make sure you retain 51% or whatever. And so like, I think that's the worst advice ever. To the contrary, I think more people should go in on splits. Like, go 50-50, go 30-30, 33-33. Like, see what happens when you all value each other's time the same.
Interesting.
See what happens, you know?
Yeah. No, I love that advice because I hear that a lot, and I kind of practice that too. But I think it's also, finding the right people for you. And we talked all about like finding the flow and whatnot. But I love that piece of advice. Another thing that just came to mind while I have you here, I don't want to forget to ask about this, but something, talking about you and your exponential growth, I would love to hear your advice on setting big goals and how do you like actually achieve them for like listeners.
100%.
That's a big question. I'm sorry.
No, I love it. Let's see if I can provide some type of tangible thing, because that's what I'm trying to figure out right now. Is like, how can I create everything to be super tangible? Because I genuinely want people to get better, like at its core. Yeah. I think one is like looking around you, like who's the most successful person you know.
Are you asking me that?
Well, just like in general.
Oh.
Like, think of someone, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Can you go bigger than them?
Ooh.
You know what I mean? Like, okay, and if you can, how can you like nudge up against them a little bit? Like, how can you bring them value just so you can feel it? Just know like how that feels. Like, go find someone who's maybe like more successful than you, or ideally like way more successful than you, and just go nudge up against them and see what it feels like to be at that level of like winning, you know? Because winning to me isn't about making money. It's like they're really good problem solvers, or they're really good communicators, or like the money and the success comes as a byproduct of someone who's just really good at a process and habits and life, right? Like, and that is very vague, but like I think we all know someone who's ideally doing well or more well than us in this moment. So like how do we offer them value? How do we do something for them? So like, I don't know, like one thing that came up on Twitter the other day that I saw was like, there's so many things you could just reach out to people on Twitter and be like, yo, I love your podcast so much, like I made this piece of artwork for you.
Oh, I saw that. You posted that on your article, right?
Yeah, and I was like, okay, that's a really cool concept. That's like that's a way to just be a permissionless apprentice. You didn't have to like be like find a master and rub up against them. It's like you just start doing it for them, and whether or not they take it, you got better because you created value.
Still did it, yeah.
Right? So like how can you create value for something bigger? And that's why in the film world a lot of people do like spec ads, right? They'll go all in on making a Nike commercial, and whether or not Nike uses it, they still made a really cool product, you know?
Yeah,
and so like trying to like translate that into anyone's language, like how do you draw something for someone else, or just like it's just like do something for free of value and just see where it takes you, and then maybe try doing that 100 times over, see where that takes you. And so
I love that. And like when it's almost like throwing it out there, one, you're learning as you're doing the process, and also you're like, if you're doing 100 or whatever goal you set, or if you even set a goal, like if you're doing this over and over, like at least one of them's bound to stick. Yeah. And like you're gonna improve as you go. And I think that's a good alternative too to the whole, hey, can I take you out to lunch and like pick your brain?
Yeah.
It's like,
don't take me to lunch. Sorry. I just like,
yeah,
I love you. Like you're an amazing human, like whatever. Like I just don't need lunch. What I need is people to help me progress my dream, my vision, right? Like I need more people on board with these things. I don't have time to just like listen to you, and this is something new for me. I've never experienced this before, where I'm not having enough time in the day to like help out as many people as I'd like.
Yeah.
Which is again why I'm making this course, because it's just like I have to like.
And you want to help. Yeah.
I truly do. Like if I could be on calls with people all day, but it's like I'm just getting beat up by it.
Yeah.
Because it's growing exponentially for me right now, and so. Yeah, I think that's another tangible thing. That's another format of doing it, is like just ask around, like who in your network, do you have any friends of friends of friends, or family members, or whoever, like is there someone close to you that's doing a project that's small, like but they're like very motivated? Is someone working on a startup? Is someone starting a new project, a new business? And just go like try to do something for them for free. Like you don't need anything. Like me and Daniel worked together for like a year together before we ever paid each other.
Yeah.
It was just like, we were both just like,
how can I help?
We're just trying to progress the dream, the vision. And at the end of the day, like money again is just a byproduct of solving really big or cool problems. Like it is the currency. It's not the money. It's the thing that moves the energy in and out of it. Right. And so I saw a really cool definition the other day that was like, money is not metal, it is trust inscribed. And so, like, how do you make money? Well, build trust. Like, put your word on it. Like, show someone that you can do it. Like, that's how you make money. It's not about metals and dollars and bank accounts. It's like, how do you make
the real currency? Is the like ability to trust, or like to have an honest business. And I love that.
And if you're just getting started, guess what your biggest money is? Your time.
Yeah.
Like go all in. Like if you got to make ends meet and you got to like have a job over here, and like, but what are you doing? Like if you do have a 9 to 5 or whatever, like what are you doing from 5 to 9? Like what's your evenings look like? Can you spend an hour a day helping someone do something for free? Type
or
of vibe.
Learning a new trade. Like I think that's where like with like the whole grind portion, like you have to grind. I get it. Like there are points in my life where I grind. I grind. I learn. And then you start to see the fruits of your labor. You know, if you do it, you know, if you're like really all in and you put in that, it's like that energetic force even with just what you're doing. I feel like in turn it will come back. And like doing stuff for free, I like how you've articulated it, because I feel like in so many, especially creative businesses, everyone's told, okay, yeah, you have to work for free for a long time. You know, you have to do free stuff. Yes, but some people get stuck in that where they're like, oh, so I'm just always doing free stuff. It's like, no, like if you do it strategically, like how I think your example was perfect. It's like, hey, can I do this for you? Here's like my work. And then they're like, wow, I love this. I want to use this. They use it. And then if they come back to you, it's like, cool, like let's set up a situation. You know what I mean? Like set up like a collaboration situation. And so I really love that. And like, don't be afraid to grind. Like, don't be afraid. Like if it's really something that you want to do, then it'll give you energy. So like when you're working, if you're working that 9 to 5 and maybe you don't want to work it anymore, you have a passion project, like, yeah, what are you doing 5 to 9? You know, could you put in an hour? Could you put in 2 hours, 3 hours of doing something you're excited about with a side hustle? Then you're already setting yourself up for success in the future. Yes, you're grinding, you're working a lot, but what you're doing should fuel you instead of drain you.
100%. And then on the flip side, it's cool because I found that I do have that authentic story where it's like, yeah, I can tell you all about my journey, like going into debt and like not like just clearly like I did have to live off of a credit card, and like I do have this whole struggle story to an extent where things got really tight and scary, and I was working over extensively for free, but like at the same time now on the flip side of it and having more to work with, it's a lot easier for me to relate with people, and it's also a lot easier for me not to feel bad where I'm just like, I don't necessarily have to pay you for like your work.
Yeah,
I would love to, but that's not good for you.
Yeah, you've got to.
That's not gonna show me that you are a good like apprentice. Like if you really want like what I've mastered, and like I'm still mastering everything, but like if you want my process, like then you have to go through my process, and part of my process was this whole part of like the working for free and like really going into that scary space that was super uncomfortable, you know, living in New York City. Like it was not smart, but it was the smartest thing I've ever done, you know? So it's like this weird.
Yeah, it's almost like I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's so true. I think when you're really put up against the wall and you have to figure it out, that's when the true learning comes in. And I actually was in a similar situation, like tons of debt, in a bad spot, couldn't get out. And like, had I not been in that position, I wouldn't, I mean, I want to be at your level. You're like my goal. But like I've mastered certain things and I wouldn't be where I'm at now. I wouldn't have the hunger. I wouldn't have the curiosity to the extent that I have it had I not gone through that. So I think there also is right now, which could be good or bad. There's a shift where people are speaking out on, okay, like interns should always be paid, or, you know, you should always be paid for the hard work you do, which I agree. Like, I think everyone's worth so much, but I love how you articulate it in a way of, but you have to go through that grind. Like, it's not even, like, I could pay you and that's great, but you're like, you're not going to learn, you're not going to overcome what you need to overcome, and that's not as, like,
everyone that I've done that with has either like fallen away or they just weren't in it like they should have been, or at least what I felt like I could just feel their heart wasn't in that, just because our original agreements weren't super authentic. Like there was some type of something that was off, and so over time, of course, that's gonna wiggle out. It's just, like the screws are gonna come off, and the thing's gonna fall apart.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, like there's no right answer there. So that how can you like create a tangible advice in that space? I don't really know. It's just like, to me, it's very much the like, think about the Karate Kid example, you know, like look at what the Karate Kid had to do to like achieve the mastery. Like
you have to go through the hard stuff. Like it can't be.
And as a master, as someone who is maybe in the other position, who's teaching or like employing someone or offering someone an opportunity, like also not giving in, you know, like like a kid. Like, you're not gonna just give your kid everything just because you have everything, you know. Like, gotta let that kid learn on its own type of vibe.
Totally. That's like, and it's such a hard like a fine line, because you never want people to feel taken advantage of, but you also, you want them to learn those crucial lessons, and it's hard for them to see it too, like on their side, like they haven't been through it. They don't know. They're like, okay, like I see this person, they've worked, so let's use you as an example. You've worked so hard, you've put in so much work, but not everyone knows your story of struggle. Like, no, not everyone knows that you had to go into debt and you had to, you know, have those scary scarcity moments to be where you're at now. And so I feel like going back to kind of what we've been talking about showing our weaknesses, I think that also brings a collective understanding to like what price we really pay to like succeed, you know? And I'm not saying like it has to be so hard. Like you were doing what you loved. Like, yes, it was a grind, but it was fueling you. And yes, it was scary, but like there's a reason why you pulled through. It wasn't just something that you're like, I have to do this, or like, I think I should do this. The shoulds need to stop. Like, it's always been something you've been passionate about. And that's why you're on the other side being like, okay, yes, that was hard. That was scary. And I'm so glad I had to go through that. But had it been maybe something you weren't passionate about, it could be, it's like you would want to be paid. You're like, why did I not get paid? Or why didn't I do this? Or I think that's the difference, is finding the passion there too.
Yeah, which is the beauty of what I think the future of the internet is. Just like this passion economy, this idea economy, this space that rewards people for just doing what they love. But like when you do what you love, it's not just bliss. Like, just let's normalize the fact that like just because I love what I do and I'm solving problems does not whatsoever mean that it was ever easy, that it was ever fun all the time, and that every single day was sunny. Because it's not. I've been more emotional this year than I've ever been in my entire life. I've had to cry in front of people that I've never wanted to like show that side of me in front of. And I've had to ask for really awkward things like coming up to my own weaknesses and being like, hey, I am going through these things and I don't know what to do, and like there's a lot going on. And then as soon as I do those things, then someone else is like, oh, like, yo, like, why didn't you say that? And I'm like, I don't know, like I couldn't. It was really hard. And like I was holding all these things in, or like whatever. I mean, I could give like 50 examples of what this year was for me, and like it was definitely not sunny.
Yeah.
You know? So like it's this weird thing, but it was so sunny because it was like so beautiful, and like looking back on it, like it's my journey. And so just normalizing like what is the journey and showing that like like I do smile almost all the time, but like I'm also realizing that maybe I shouldn't, like not in a bad way, but just kind of like just being more authentic to like if I actually am feeling
like, if you're happy, smile. If you're not, like, you don't have to. You don't have to put a smile on your face.
Exactly. And so I think that's really important, especially in teams, and especially as we move into this next chapter of like more of a digital format where it's just like really trying to honor truly what you're feeling. And that kind of comes back to a lot of that, more of that spiritual side of like so much. So
I know there's so much. There's so much, and I've loved this so much. Like, this conversation's been so expansive for me, because I don't know, like, I feel like you have so much knowledge, and you do want to help people succeed. And I feel that, like I said earlier, it's like you have a presence and like an energy that I've honestly never experienced. And I feel like it's because you are in flow, you know, and you're tapping into the spiritual side of things, and you've been through a lot, you know, like this didn't just fall into your lap, and it wasn't this like perfect journey. Like it's been a rough road at times, but it's been worth it. It's part of the journey, and you can look back and you're like, okay, that all makes sense. I'm happy.
And I think that's kind of where people get lost a lot of times when they tell their story, because they tell it from this like beautiful sunny side of like it's all good, because at that point, like in retrospect, it is beautiful, but like how do you actually portray those hardships inside of a success story, right? Like, because it's a success story. So was there hard, like, yes, there are hardships, you know what I mean? So like I don't know, but at the end of the day, I definitely do think it would be cool to like extend this conversation so that we can make it more tangible. And I mean, I would love to just kind of like start working together on more things where it's just like, okay, let's just like figure out a time, whatever, like once a week or once a month or whatever, and just like touching base on like what's working for you, what's working for me, and then as I'm like growing my side of things and you're growing this side of things, that we could kind of like continue to just like, because this is a lot, like, in to break this down, like really you could tear this whole entire conversation, like you could put this conversation into a book, or you could put it into a course, or like whatever.
There's so much.
And especially, and that's the thing, is like I really 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 want people to be able to understand this in your own language, so that wherever you are, you can like touch it, you feel it, and you're like, okay, I kind of know what I want to do like tomorrow, like I know what I need to do. I know what I need to do now, like this makes sense, like that light bulb. And so
light bulb, the like mindset shift, so you can, because we can talk about it in our own way for hours and hours and hours, but what are those things that, how do we make it tick, how do we make it like click, I guess.
And so outlining the framework, like what is the framework of these stories, because the stories are emotion based, but the framework is the how-tos. It's the nail and the screw and the piece of wood, and like it's the thing. The
yin, the yang, the feminine versus the masculine, the balance. That is there a balance? Probably. I don't know if we'll ever achieve balance, but they do go there. They go hand in hand. Whatever you want to call it, yin yang, hammer and nail, whatever it is. Like, how do we find that within our business? How do we find the structure versus like the more emotional side of it, the substance? Seriously, we could talk forever. But I would love to like continue this conversation, and like, how can we, like, I want to help you, and like, I'd love for you to help me, and I'd love for us to be able to help listeners to understand this concept more thoroughly. So we should talk about that.
Perfect. Let's do it.
So thank you again. I have one last question that I ask everyone as well. If you could only have one sauce for the rest of your life, what would you choose and why?
So originally I was thinking, like, have you ever seen the juice in the sauce meme?
Yeah. The video?
Yeah.
I am posting that actually very shortly.
Okay, amazing. So that one's amazing in the context of like, what is the sauce? And the sauce is like what lasts
the
forever.
Sauce is forever.
So for me, it's definitely soy sauce. And I definitely wrap whole entire days or meals around the fact that I start with the sauce first. A lot of people go like, oh, I want this genre of food, and I want to have like whatever Chinese, I want to have like whatever type of food they want. But I'm like, soy sauce.
Soy sauce.
What can we pair with soy sauce?
Yes.
That's really good.
I love that. That's how I am with Nutella.
Start
like,
with
what can I, like, I need Nutella. What can I put it on?
Yeah.
I love that. Soy sauce is good.
Yeah.
It's very underrated.
For sure. I mean, rice, poke bowls, like, you could, I'd put it on everything.
Literally, you could just have rice and soy sauce, and it's delicious.
I do that all the time.
I love that.
Sometimes I just have soy sauce and ginger.
What? One time, this is horrible. When I was like 12, my sister she gave me $5 to drink a cup of soy sauce. I've never been so sick in my life.
It's a lot of sodium.
Yeah, it was like a full-blown cup of soy sauce, and I got $5, and I was sick all night. So I'm impressed. So you just do soy sauce and ginger?
Yeah, you just get a little ginger and dip it in sauce.
Okay, you dip it. So you're not like drinking the soy sauce.
No.
Okay, that changes everything.
I probably could, but
no, that is amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me. This was so expansive, and this is totally the direction that I've wanted to take the podcast. I feel like you've been able to articulate things I never thought I could, and I've learned so much from you. So thank you for coming.
Of course. Let's keep it going.
Yeah. So for those listening, I mean, you're not on Instagram, but where can they find you?
So I just kind of made my own personal website. I've kind of taken on this like Hawaiian name, which is Jordy instead of Jordan,
Okay.
So Jordy Alexander is my middle name. So I'm just starting to move into that space. So jordyalexander.com is like my new little space. And then that has like my Telegram channel, which I like talk to myself on, which is like a fun concept.
Love that.
And then my Medium thing, medium.com, is linked on there as well. And then, just as I move into building out this community on Office Party is basically where I'm going to be putting, like, really breaking down a lot of these concepts. And I would assume that's a place where we can also share, where we can just, like, record Zoom calls and go in there and just talk about all these things.
I love that. So Office Party, how can they get involved? Is it an app? How can they, like, is it online? Like, how can they sign up?
Yeah, so we're still technically in beta. But if you do go to officeparty.medium.com is like where we're hosting a lot of just our general insights as to like what it is that we're building with audience and community and all these things and how people can get started. And then if someone does really have like if they get through some of these articles or they really enjoyed some of the concepts we talked about today and already know like exactly how they would want to do it, then yeah, they can just email us at any of the emails at Office Party. It's all over our website, officeparty.co. And then we can like help people start to go ahead and create communities. But we are just being kind of like we're cruising on it, on like figuring out like exactly who we kind of want on there and who we don't want. So keeping it a little bit exclusive right now.
Ooh, love that, exclusive. I love that. So I'll put that all in the show notes so
Cool.
they can see it very easily. But thank you again, and I'm sure we're gonna be talking again soon.
100%.
So awesome. Woo, that was so good.
Let's go.
That was so good.